The plane flew further and further away. I couldn't hold back my tears, and I thought about how long it would be before we saw each other again, how hard it is to leave loved ones. But it was my choice. I made that decision for myself. One way or another, it was still going to hurt, because it was a choice between one parent and another. Hi, my name is Megan, and I have two families, one rich, one not. But the worst part is that I had to choose between them. My whole life I've lived in luxury because I had super rich parents who never denied me anything. My every wish was granted. They tried not to spoil me too much though, because they were afraid I'd end up like all the other rich kids, always wasting money on stuff. My neighbor Tom, for example, once bought a gold fridge for his bedroom, and his best friend decided to outdo him and bought a gold yacht. They got in a fight about it. They're cool guys though, and you can have a laugh at them, especially if you dare them. But you can't talk to them for long. Their interests revolved around money and fancy stuff. I was not attracted to this excessive luxury. I've always believed that a person should have everything in moderation, and my parents were very happy with that attitude because they were afraid that my friends would spoil me, and I'll start, say, lighting the fireplace with money, or eating it. Yes, we had some examples in our company. One girl made her own clothes out of notes. That's why I tried to avoid social gatherings, to avoid getting caught up in any scandal. But unfortunately I did, and it changed my life. Every few years, in a mansion of a big businessman that looked more like a palace, there was a ball for rich parents and their children. My family never managed to get there. Sometimes they were too busy, or I had better things to do. But one day, we decided not to miss such an important event. I had spent a long time getting ready. I bought the prettiest dress, my mother did my hair, and my dad booked a pink limousine. And when we got to the wrought iron gate, they stopped us right at the entrance.
"You're not on the guest list,"
the guard said sternly. "What do you mean we're not on the guest list? We've got the invitation." My mother was outraged.
"I have no right to let you in, as your name is not on the list." "Get Mr. Andrews," demanded my father.
When Mr. Andrews came out, we expected to hear an apology, but he claimed that all this time we got the invitation by mistake. "Bruce, our families have been friends for years. Why won't you let us in?" My mother spoke softly and calmly.
"Friendship is one thing. Events like this are another. High society is here, and I don't want you embarrassing me with your adopted child."
He gave me that look on his face. Wait, what? Foster what? What does that mean? I stared at my parents, but they froze and couldn't move, almost as if Elsa had frozen them. "Mom, Dad, what does that mean?" My voice was shaking, and so was I.
"Dear, we'll talk at home," he said.
Daddy put his arm around my shoulders, and we got in the limo and drove away. At home, my parents had to tell me the truth. It turned out that they had adopted me before I was a year old. They'd been trying for years to have a baby, but it didn't work out. And when we saw you, Megan, we fell in love and knew you were our daughter. My mom carefully tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Do you think I made a scene or threw a huge tantrum and smashed dishes? No. I hugged my parents and thanked them for everything. They saved me from a horrible orphan life and made sure I grew up to be a happy girl. However, my mood was ruined the very next morning. The media wrote about yesterday's incident, and there was a video of us arguing with Mr. Andrews. Luckily, a lot of people didn't care that I was adopted, except the rich snots. So we cut ties with Tom and his company, because only the chosen few were part of their circle. My parents, on the other hand, had a problem. Mr. Andrews is a very powerful man, and no one ever risked ruining their relationship with him. So my parents lost some lucrative contracts.
"We'll have to go to Europe to sort things out,"
said my father sullenly. "There's no other way. Megan, you are going to live alone for a while, all right?" "Of course, I'm used to it." My parents are often away on business trips for long periods of time, and I usually either stay at home or hang out with friends. But this time, it didn't go according to plan. One day, I was coming home from school. An old pickup truck pulled up next to me. Some overweight people got out of it and immediately rushed towards me. "We have finally found you!" The woman hugged me tightly and burst into tears.
"After all these years."
The man took me in his arms. Oh, they shouldn't have done that, because they were immediately twisted by my guards. "Hey, leave them alone," I ordered, and then looked over at the strange couple. "Who are you?" We're your parents, the woman cried, unable to calm down. The real ones. Maybe you don't know, but you live in an adopted family now. I know. I was so shocked that I sat down right on the pavement. My life was turned upside down in just a couple of days, and I thought nothing could knock me off my feet, quite like the end of the Squid Game. My birth parents introduced themselves. My father's name was David, and my mother's name was Delora. They've been trying to find me for 10 years now. But why did you put me in an orphanage? They sat down beside me on the pavement, and my mother explained that she gave birth to me at a very young age. Both her parents and my father's parents were against the baby because they didn't want to have another mouth to feed, because both families were already big and poor. And at the time, it was very hard to find work, so David and Delora were struggling financially.
We thought we'd take you home from the orphanage in a year, once we managed to improve our financial situation a little bit.
But that didn't happen in time. Delora wiped away her tears.
We looked all over the state for you.
And when we saw the video on Instagram, we knew you were our baby girl.
You look so much like your mom.
It was hard to believe because the whole situation seemed delusional and unrealistic. My birth parents really wanted to connect with me, but I couldn't just give them a hug, kiss them, and accept them. After all, I'd only known them for half an hour. We exchanged numbers, and I promised to call them when I was ready. But for a few days, I was in such a state of confusion that I didn't notice anything around me. I didn't know if I should talk to my birth parents or if I should tell my adoptive parents about them. In the end, I couldn't take it anymore and told my mom and dad about meeting my real parents. It terrified them, but they still allowed me to talk to them if I wanted to. So I arranged to meet David and Delora. When I got to their house, I was greeted with such warmth and joy that I was a little confused. Delora fed me a delicious, greasy meal, which my foster parents usually forbade me to eat, and they also gave me some really nice gifts. Do you want to come with us for a picnic tomorrow? Sure. And it was an awesome day. I never got as much attention from my parents as I got from Delora and David. It was obvious how much they loved me. I started talking about them to my parents all the time, who suspiciously started sending me frequent gifts. They sent me a gold chain with a pendant shaped like Harry Potter's scar. Then they finally let me buy a car. And then they told me I could fly in to see them so we could spend some time together. I'm sorry, but I want to get to know Delora and David better. And I think I may have offended my parents a little with that announcement because they started sending me more gifts. Meanwhile, Delora and David were organizing great weekends for me. We went to the water park, had a barbecue, and at night we would look up at the starry sky and listen to David because he knew so much about the stars and space. I guess that's what I always missed, just being with my parents. But I also needed attention because my foster parents were often away on business. When I told them about last weekend, I got a telescope with a note that now I didn't have to go anywhere to look at the stars. It was like they were trying to bribe me, so I wouldn't talk to my real parents anymore. And it made me angry. Regardless, I still loved them. But I've grown fond of David and Delora too. I tried to explain to my mom and dad, but they wouldn't listen to me. And then one day they said, Megan, we forbid it. They only want you for your money and your status.
They're poor. They haven't changed. What can they give you?
Daddy added. Forget about those people. They are nobody to you. You are wrong, I yelled out. They have made a huge mistake in their lives and they are very sorry. And now they're trying to make it right. And I don't blame them. I like hanging out with them. Apparently, my parents didn't like it. So they told the guards to keep me in the house. And the next day to bring me to the airport, put me on a plane, and fly me over to them. However, I managed to escape at the very last moment. After all, our guards were not known for their cleverness and agility. I ran to David and Delora and told them in tears that they're trying to separate us again.
We won't let that happen,
David replied. And then he called my parents to try to negotiate with them. But my parents were adamant. They blamed Delora and David for leaving me in an orphanage 15 years ago. They also said so many hurtful words that Delora and David got really sad. Honey, we don't want your money. We want to be there for you and make up for all the lost years. I knew that, and I wanted to get to know them too. But I was hurt because my adoptive parents didn't understand that I loved everyone equally. When they came back, they didn't make a scene, but gently began to manipulate me. They promised to buy me everything. a yacht, a condo downtown, and even arrange a meeting with my favorite actor, Daniel Radcliffe, but on the condition that I never see Delora or David again. I turned it all down and threatened to move in with them altogether if my parents didn't stop their manipulation and their stupid war for my attention. But I soon got sad news. David and Delora had to move to another country because David got a promotion. The pay was higher there and the living conditions were better. They asked me to come with them, but as you can tell, I turned that down. Yes, I fell in love with them, and I really liked hanging out with them. But despite that, I was attached to another family who raised and educated me. And seeing how sad I was to see my parents go, Mom and Dad said I could visit them from time to time. I guess they realized that I loved them after all, and I would never leave them, so they've softened up and let me talk to David and Delora freely. What would you do if you were forced with that choice? Write your answers in the comments. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. And give it a thumbs up.